begun the morning by chanting in praise of the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, reflecting on the Buddha's teachings that all conditioned things are impermanent, unsatisfactory, and not self. So chanting in this way we call merit. Making your mind firm in merit might be to chant with energy, with mindfulness, completing the chant, not getting distracted, not giving up. If you chant with energy, with mindfulness, you pay attention to what you're chanting. This will give rise to saddha, faith, confidence in the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha. Brings up our own self-confidence and energy. Because we're starting our day in a good way, in a wholesome way. Whatever else happens today, we can be sure that at least at this time, we've experienced a wholesome state of mind, engaged in a wholesome, skillful activity. The word for merit is punya. The word for wholesome action, skillful action is kusala. And these two words, punya and kusala, or merit and skillfulness, are almost synonymous but not exactly the same. They're like two parts of our mind, two qualities that support each other. Kusala Dhamma, wholesome Dhammas, are skillful mental qualities that make us clever, that bring up wisdom. So they say kusala Dhamma helps to preserve merit, the merit that we do to keep our actions of body, speech and mind meritorious, and to stop us getting attached to the merit or lost in the merit or losing the merit. So skillful states of mind help preserve our merit, like salt preserves meat. Without the salt, the meat will go rotten in the sun, in the hot weather. But with salt, it will last a long time. In the same way, we have to develop wholesome, skillful states of mind, develop wisdom, reflect on the truth, to help preserve the merit that we've made and to help us make more. Practicing the Dhamma, we're developing the 5 spiritual qualities: saddha, faith, virya, persistent effort, sati, mindfulness, samadhi, stillness of mind, states of calm, panya, wisdom. And these 5 qualities are all being cultivated together when we meditate. The Buddha, in his wisdom, pointed out that we're cultivating many good, skillful qualities together in our practice that support each other and balance each other. Because it's natural sometimes our efforts in the practice can become unbalanced. We focus on one thing and neglect another. We try hard in one area and are lazy in another. Sometimes we get caught up in the details or the one aspect of the practice and lose sight of our overall goal and what we're aiming for in the practice. So these 5 indriya, spiritual faculties, they work together, balancing each other, supporting each other. So if we begin our morning by chanting, recollecting the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, we bring up the quality of saddha, faith, belief in the Buddha, his enlightenment, in the power of the Dhamma, the truth, to transform our mind from a mind that is still subject to craving and attachment, ignorance, into a mind that is liberated, free from the causes of suffering, experiencing peace and happiness. And the Sangha, developing faith in the noble ones, those men and women since the time of the Buddha up to the present day who have practiced and realized the truth, who give us direction in our practice because they're all human beings just like us. And if they can practice and realize the Dhamma, then that means we also have that same capacity to realize the Dhamma. Just now we chanted that the Buddha is the unexcelled teacher of those, or trainer of those who wish to be trained. Those who wish to be trained is us right now. And we voluntarily came to the monastery or joined the retreat online. Nobody forced us to do that. We are coming forward to train in the teaching and the way of practice that the Buddha gave us. And part of our experience of saddha, faith, is the belief that we can train, we can develop ourselves as human beings, we can learn, we can improve, we can abandon the causes of suffering and attachment, and we can cultivate the path. So as we reflect on the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, in our chanting, in our meditation, we're drawing those qualities that the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha represent into our own heart and cultivating them, bringing them up to completion, to realization. And this is important in the beginning of our practice, especially in meditation. Have to have some self-belief, self-confidence, as well as belief in the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. But the spiritual quality of saddha, faith, is balanced by panya, wisdom. It's possible to have blind faith, or faith in something that is not wholesome or skillful, that will not lead us to the end of suffering. So we balance our faith with wisdom, wise reflection. As we're developing our meditation, we're cultivating both the emotional side of our humanity, developing positive emotions, and faith is one of them. But we're also developing our intelligence and our ability to wisely reflect on our experience. And these two aspects of the mind, again, they support each other. Without faith, we have no enthusiasm for the practice. We won't put forth effort. Our mind will lack energy. Our mind will be darker. With faith, the mind brightens up. Faith illuminates the mind. So sometimes simply hearing the words of the Buddha or recollecting the Buddha, the mind brightens immediately, maybe even enters a state of calm, samadhi. If the other faculties, sati, virya, are there, samadhi can arise immediately. Some people do the morning chanting, and by the end their mind has already attained a state of samadhi. The wisdom faculty guides the faith faculty, supports it, directs it to contemplate and reflect on what is beneficial and useful for our practice. It stops that positive emotion of faith from overflowing, gushing out, or being undirected. And sometimes we can have a burst of faith, and although the mind is in a positive state, it's like water that's not directed to any use, it just floods. The faith floods our mind, but is not put to any useful purpose, and occasionally can even be directed to some foolish or harmful purpose. So we need wisdom to guide and balance our faith. We use the brightness of the mind that is established in faith to go on and cultivate effort, virya, into bringing up sati, mindfulness. With continuous mindfulness, the mind calms, develops states of samadhi. And from samadhi we stabilize the mind, steady the mind, so that we can see and know the truth, and remove some of the causes of our suffering, which is wisdom. So we need wisdom in the beginning of the practice, the middle and the end, all through this practice. The wisdom faculty is not something you leave to the end, develop later on. We need wisdom from day one. We need to reflect on why we're practicing at the beginning of our day. Why are we chanting? Why are we practicing meditation? We need to reflect on our efforts to see what needs to be cultivated at any one time. What is the useful quality to bring up in our meditation, depending on our experience? Because every day is different. We need to train ourselves in wisdom to reflect on what's going on, to know what we're doing, what's happening, to keep our goal in mind. So sattha and panya, wisdom, provide this solid foundation to begin our meditation. Positive emotion guided by wisdom. Sometimes sattha is lacking, so we have to go back, recollect the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, recollect why we are practicing, remind ourselves that we still have stress and suffering in our life and that we want to overcome it. Sometimes we begin meditating and we just plump ourselves down on the cushion, and because we've done it before, maybe many times, there's no refined awareness or understanding at that moment. We're just doing it out of habit in a more casual way. They say sitting, just sitting. That can be looked at on two different levels. Just sitting can be a very refined state of wisdom where the sense of self has gone, mindfulness is established, clarity is there, and it's just a person sitting without attachment. But then there's another kind of just sitting where there's no mindfulness or wisdom at all, and no faith and no wholesome qualities. Just sitting is just sitting and falling asleep, or letting the mind roam and wander all over the place. So we need some wisdom to reflect on the quality of our effort and the quality of our mind, bring the right attitude to the practice to stop it becoming just a kind of habitual or casual experience where we're not really developing much at all, just passing the time till we hear the bell for the end of the session. Every moment that we're meditating is precious and valuable to us. We've set aside our time to do this, so we should bring that good intention to fulfillment and reflect on the quality of our effort as we're practicing. It is effort, or virya, that is stimulated by faith and wisdom. As we see the need to practice, we see the benefit of it, then we're willing to put in effort, or make effort, bring up energy. Especially first thing in the morning, we've just come from many hours of sleep perhaps, We need to put energy into our posture. And say, bring up energy from the base of your spine as you're sitting. Push up from the base of your spine. Hold your back erect, keep your head up. This will energize your posture. It's the first practice we need to establish to stop ourselves falling asleep. You notice when you're sleeping, your head tends to droop, your back droops. You lose energy in the posture. So virya, as a spiritual faculty, it's this quality of persistent effort. It begins with your posture, and then paying attention to the meditation object, the breath, or any other meditation object you're using. It's the effort to know that object, to bring the mind to the object. So to bring the mind to pay attention to the breath. We use the other faculties to help. So samadhi comes about through both faith and wisdom and effort and mindfulness. But sometimes your effort has to be strong, and you have to grab the mind by the scruff of its collar and drag it to the breath. No nonsense, no mucking about. You're going to stick the mind onto the breath. Other times your effort has to be more subtle, gently persuading, convincing the mind to stay with the breath because it's a good thing. It will lead on to good things. The important thing about the spiritual faculty of virya is it has to be persistent. You have to keep doing it. You have to keep bringing up mindfulness, bringing the mind to the present moment, putting the attention on the breath, and letting go of everything else. So virya is the effort to establish sati, mindfulness. If our virya drops away, then our physical posture tends to slump, our head droops, or our mind becomes distracted, daydreaming, lost in a realm of dreams, floating around. They say like a ghost, just floating around through the atmosphere, no longer with your body, no longer with the present moment, no longer with the breath, just floating like a homeless ghost, uncontrolled, unguided, lost. Or as one teacher says, if you're meditating in the morning and there's no effort and there's no sati, then your body starts to sway with the sleepiness, and you're no better than a corpse floating on the ocean, bobbing up and down, not knowing anything. So our effort is to bring up sati in the present moment. Recollect what you need to recollect in the present moment. Recollecting your posture, recollecting the breath, recollecting the quality of your effort, recollecting the mind. Is it in a wholesome state or an unwholesome state? Is it present with the breath, or has it gone wandering elsewhere? With presence of mind, with sati, The mind isn't dying from the present moment. It's not dying and getting lost into sleepiness. It's not dying and getting lost into fantasies, daydreams, worries. It's not planning the rest of the day yet. We don't need to plan what we're going to do later yet. We can just set all of that aside. We're not dragging up yesterday to think about at this time. Keeping the mind with mindfulness on the breath in the present moment. Experiencing the deathless. The present moment doesn't die if we have mindfulness from moment to moment to moment. Then we're having a small glimpse of Nibbana. The mind is not dropping away, caught into its thinking and different moods, or reacting to pleasant or unpleasant stimulation. It's knowing. So mindfulness, sati, leads on to equanimity. Knowing, but not getting lost in experience. So having sati won't stop painful experiences arising. You may have pain in your legs, or feel tired. You may have an unpleasant memory arise. Sati keeps you in the present moment, keeps your mind in the middle, knowing these things, but not getting caught up into the reaction and getting lost into aversion, displeasure, and not seeking distraction. So maybe a pleasant memory, pleasant, blissful feeling arises during your meditation, but sati keeps you in the middle, not getting lost in it. As we sit longer and mindfulness continues, if we can put effort into bringing up mindfulness over and over, we may experience some pleasure. Pleasure of body, pleasure of mind, or some rapture, joy, interest in the meditation. The effort we make to put the mind onto the breath pays off. We're no longer bored or restless. The mind is able to stay with the breath comfortably, even enjoy the breath. But we can get lost in that. You notice as sati becomes more continuous, body and mind relax. We experience more pleasure, more joy. But this can also lead to distraction. With waves of enthusiasm, of piti, rapture, then it can stimulate fantasies, streams of positive emotion, positive thought, but then we get lost in them. We get caught up in the enthusiasm for the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, for our meditation. Or if it's the more subtle feelings of bliss, contentment that may start to pervade body and mind. If we're not alert, then that can dull the mind. The mind can actually become lazy, indulgent in the pleasure that arises as body and mind calm. It's a bit like when you're hungry, been hungry for many hours, and you finally get to have some food. And the food is good, nourishing, satisfies you, but then you just sit there stuck with satisfaction of having eaten with a full stomach. You don't move, you don't go on to do anything else. As sati becomes more continuous and we experience some of the happiness of samadhi, contentment, the mind can become inert and just sit there or just stay there, indulging in the happiness to the point where we forget our goal, we forget to investigate or reflect on the Dhamma, and we become dull. It's like saying this is good enough, but it's not good enough because the causes of suffering, craving and attachment are still there. And we're no longer looking to understand or abandon them. We just settle for the level of contentment that we've achieved. And then the mind kind of goes to sleep with that. Maybe even does literally fall asleep or stay in a kind of dream state where the body and mind are calm, but mindfulness slackens off. We lose mindfulness, so we lose our ability to reflect or see the Dhamma, see the truth. The mind is in a sort of wholesome state. It's not suffering strongly. It can be quite pleasant. So very similar to relaxing and falling asleep at night. It's pleasant, and we'll take that as better than what we had before. Maybe before your mind was restless, your body had some aches and pains, you felt tired. Now you feel some contentment flooding into your body and mind as you meditate longer. So it almost anesthetizes you. You accept it as good enough because then there's no extreme suffering. So you let the mind just sit there, inert, immovable, but not immovable because of wholesome states of Dhamma arising. Immovable because we've just given up and accept the level of contentment as good enough. And then we have to come back to wisdom. Wisdom has to see this is not good enough. This is not the highest happiness. This is not the goal of our practice. Just to relax the mind and body. It is a step along the path, but it has its own danger that we can become attached to it. And then mindfulness, wisdom have to come back and say, no, we have to carry on refining our awareness, so developing a more refined, continuous level of mindfulness. And we have to reflect on the Dhamma. Contemplate the body, contemplate the mind. Reflect on the three characteristics: impermanence, unsatisfactory, not self. If the mind is calm, you're not sure what to do next, then come back to the body. Lift up the body into your consciousness and contemplate in light of the three characteristics. The impermanence of the physical body, its changing nature, the unsatisfactory nature of this body because it's constantly changing, aging, and the lack of self in it. Contemplate it. Contemplate the component parts of the body, the 32 parts, the 4 elements. Use the state of calm to investigate the body, to see it in the true light of wisdom, Dhamma. And when these spiritual faculties are all present, the mind is luminous, bright. And we can turn that brightness of mindfulness, state of calm, samadhi, to develop insight into the true nature of the body. Just like turning a torch on in the dark. When the 5 hindrances are running wild in our mind, then there's no torch, there's no light. We're just caught up into thinking or sleepiness. But once we've put this effort into bringing up mindfulness, calming the body and mind, then direct the light of wisdom to contemplate this body. Examine it, analyze the component parts, see the impermanent nature of them, see the dukkha in the body, see the lack of self. There's no essential self or abiding essence in any of these 4 elements or 32 parts that make up the body. So you're shining the lamp, the torch, or the lamp of Dhamma. The stronger your mindfulness, the deeper the state of samadhi. It's like the better the quality of the light. So sometimes our mindfulness is a bit weak. So it's just like a flickering candle. Just exposes a little bit of Dhamma, a little bit of truth. You see a little bit of impermanence and then it flickers out and you miss it again or get lost. But with persistent effort, continuous effort, maybe that flickering candle can turn into a torch or even into a floodlight, filling this body and mind with the luminosity of mindfulness and wisdom. And this reveals impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, lack of self in our experience from a place of equanimity, calm, clarity, wisdom. It's all the while that's freeing the mind from craving and attachment, no longer just following the prejudice and biases of the mind, but just seeing feelings, perceptions, mental formations, sense consciousness and the body as they are, as we just chanted. Impermanent, not self. So we can carry on meditating together until you hear the sound of the bell.